Hey, what's up? This is John. I'm in the La Brea tar pits today. And as you can see behind me, there is a large morass filled with black goo that many animals over the eons have fallen into and met their demise at. Now, as you can see, there's a fence next to this pond of black goo, specifically to create a boundary so that people don't step close to this tar and possibly fall in. For the safety of the people in this park, they have constructed this fence over here. Still pretty easy to jump, but I digress. The reason there's a fence here is to keep people safe. Now, what I'd like to talk to you today about is boundaries. Your metaphorical fence in your life, doing people a favor so that they know when they're doing something that may be crossing a boundary and possibly causing you emotional turmoil. If you don't understand this stuff, this is gonna impact your life dramatically. You may have a life that's outside of your control if you don't get these things handled. So stay tuned. I'm gonna go deep into this topic of boundaries. So a way to think about boundaries is you're putting up these barriers, not only to help yourself, but to help other people understand when they may be doing something that's not in their best interest. Now, another example of this could be a nuclear power plant, right? They need to have fences around that thing because people don't know any better. They may go to the power plant thinking it's a cool thing, it looks interesting, and they may get exposed to radiation and die. There are three types of people. Now I'm gonna go into those different types and help you recognize when you are in one of these types. Now, an important thing to note, many people have a tendency to be one or more types, but sometimes, depending on the context, you may shift in and out of a different type. So type number one is a compliant. Now what a compliant is basically somebody who will bend over backwards for anybody. They don't have any boundaries whatsoever, and when somebody asks them to do something, they do it. This is otherwise known as a people pleaser or a doormat. And if you're the type of person who will do anything for anyone, whenever, that's a big problem for you because that's going to drain your time and energy. And the problem with not setting boundaries, as it is in this case, most people are so caught up in their own world and they're not mind readers. Most people are so concerned about what they have going on that they don't even notice when they might be stepping on your boundaries. And if you're not telling them, that's making it even harder. Now, the second type of person is what's known as an avoidant type of person. An avoidant is basically a compliant, except this person is aware that when they're around other people, they're gonna get sucked into doing things for that person and pleasing these people, which inevitably exhausts them and leads them to want to avoid people at all costs. So these people sometimes become loners, or maybe they don't show up to work and they get fired and they lose their job, right? There's a lot of problems that come with being avoidant. This sucks for the avoidant person because we need people in our lives. And if you're isolating yourself because you don't have the courage to draw a boundary, that's a very sad place to be, and that's obviously very problematic for your life. Okay, now the third type of person is what's known as a dominant. Now, a dominant person is someone who's actually very good at drawing a boundary. However, the weakness of a dominant is sometimes they can't see when someone else should have a boundary drawn, and they may be walking all over that person's boundaries without realizing it and basically sucking the life out of that person. Now, compliance and dominance tend to attract each other for obvious reasons, right? The dominant works well with the compliant because the compliant's constantly trying to help the dominant. And the problem lies where the compliant over time starts to become worn out and possibly starts to become resentful, okay? If they're not making their boundaries known and they're constantly having their emotions stepped on or their time and energy disrespected, then they may start to build up resentment over time. Now, this isn't fair to the dominant because, again, people aren't mind readers, and it's up to you, it's your responsibility to help people know what your boundaries are so that they can help you out better, right? Think about a little kid, okay? Little kids are always going to be pushing their boundaries naturally. I remember when I was a little shitty kid, I would whack my uncles and aunts. And then one day somebody scolded me for doing that, and I learned my lesson. I learned where the boundary was. You can't just go around smacking your aunts and uncles. That's not a pro-social behavior. But here's the thing, if nobody ever called me out on that, I probably would have been a fucking asshole as a grown-up, whacking fully grown adults, which isn't cool. Now, another example of this is like when you're in the TSA security line at the airport, right? I tend to have 2 carry-ons with me, and when I'm going through security, I've learned the hard way that I need to grab 2 bins to make a space for myself so that the person behind me doesn't crowd me. Because if I grab 1 bin and load that first, and then I try to load my next bag in the second bin, I can't because that person doesn't know I need to do a second bin, and now they're crowding my space. Now, I used to get kind of annoyed with this, and at the end of the day, I realized it's not their fault. People are just so caught up in their own worlds, they don't even realize that I need 2 bins for both my carry-ons. They're just going with the information that I'm sending them, which is, oh, he's already loaded his bin, I'm gonna fill in that space. It's completely subconscious, they're not even paying attention. So it's up to me to grab those 2 bins, and nobody's gonna get mad about it. I just need to signal to them what I need in that moment in time. Another example is you're sitting in traffic and you don't put on your blinker. You're trying to get in another line. There's a bunch of people in that line. Now, if you roll the window down and you wave at the person, look them in the eye, and possibly ask them, as human to human, hey, do you mind if I get in your lane? Do you mind if I cut in front of you or behind you? Oftentimes, most people are reasonable if you look them in the eye and make a polite request and you're respectful about it. You're not overly entitled and rude, you're respectful and you understand that you are taking value in this moment. But many people will be nice and they'll be like, yeah, sure, go on ahead. But if you just cut in, they might be kind of annoyed with you. And also, if you don't put on your blinker and you don't have the courage to engage with these people next to you in traffic, you may miss your turn. You need to get in that right-hand lane or whatever it is. And if you don't communicate, nobody's gonna know to let you in that line and you're screwing yourself over, okay? With boundaries, it's important to warn people. It's important to let them know what your boundaries are, because a boundary could be a pet peeve, right? Something that's completely arbitrary and nobody in 1,000 years is gonna be able to guess that's bothering you, especially when you're not letting them know that's bothering you. Everybody has a unique set of rules for themselves. Everyone has a different value system. And it's important when somebody is doing something that maybe is irritating you, don't just become reactive and scream at them, right? That's not good either. That's not being diplomatic. Instead, what you want to do is calm down, and when you're in a better headspace, remember specifically what it was that they did that may have bothered you. And you want to be respectful when you bring up these boundaries, right? Like, for example, a pet peeve of mine is when people blast music. I used to have roommates who would blast music all the time. I thought this was disrespectful because it wasn't just me living in the house, it was several other people, and the person blasting music doesn't even know whether or not the other people wanted to listen to that music, right? Some of these people might have even been sleeping, okay? This person blasting the music had a blind spot. They don't know that they're doing anything wrong. That's the point, right? Because maybe they grew up in a household where that was okay, everybody accepted it, nobody had an issue with it. But if we have an issue with it, we can't just sit by and become bitter. We need to say something, but not in an angry way that creates conflict. We need to be respectful with that person. And sometimes you may have to calm down if you're becoming too emotionally aroused. Wait for yourself to chill out and then address the situation, because you don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers, right? You've got to be diplomatic and not create negative social capital. So drawing boundaries is actually also important in work. And again, you're going to be a different type of person maybe depending on the context, right? Some people in their family life are gonna be more the dominant, but when they go to work, they may become more of a compliance or maybe even an avoidant, God forbid. Now, the problem with work is if you can't draw boundaries at work, if you don't know what your priorities are, say you have a reactive supervisor and they are constantly asking you to do random things at random times, the problem with that is there's an unlimited amount of work that you can do. And if you don't set a boundary to focus on your priorities in that job, like what is the highest ROI activity that you're getting paid to do, if you don't focus on that, well, you're doing your employer a disservice. And at the same time, you're doing your family a disservice as well, because you don't have time to hang out with them. That work-life balance is gonna get thrown off, And maybe your relationship suffers, okay? Because at work, you're a compliant. But let's say you're dominant in certain situations. Here's a great example. Let's say you're living with your parents, and your parents love you. They don't have a problem with you living at home. But let's say you're in your late 20s or maybe your 30s, and you realize that your parents might be financially struggling by having you live in their house. Now, they may not have a problem with this. They don't mind that you're setting them back financially. Maybe they're not even aware. Maybe they have a blind spot, right? Maybe with you, they're a compliant and they're people pleasing their own child. Now, if you love your parents, you don't want to take advantage of them and you don't want to harm them financially. So it's important to become aware of this and put a boundary on yourself for what you believe that they need. That's being proactive about setting boundaries. You want to look at the person who might be a compliant, figure out what boundaries they should be setting for themselves, and then that way you can be proactive about putting those boundaries on yourself. And maybe from there you move out, you get your own apartment, pay a little extra money every month just to exist, and visit your parents 2 or 3 times a week, okay? But that's being proactive and setting a boundary on yourself to help out other people in your life so that you're not a burden to anybody. Got it? Do an audit, figure out what type of these boundary setters are you in certain situations in your life. Depending on what you are, figure out what it is you need to do so that you can not only keep yourself happier, but also keep other people in your personal life and your work life happy, right? So that everybody can benefit from relating with one another and not have so many emotional issues come up. Now, communication is important. I do implore you to use crucial conversations when you are drawing a boundary with somebody. And again, don't be angry when you're doing it. You want to be assertive, but you also don't want to be emotional. You don't want to be angry. And remember specifically what that person did and maybe even give them a suggestion for what they could do different. Possibly even give them a feedback sandwich, which is a positive of what they're doing well, the thing that they could work on, which is kind of bothering you, and then a positive direction moving forward. Maybe solve the issue for them and give them some advice. Because here's the thing, if you're petting a dog and that dog just bites you, they're gonna euthanize that dog. But if you're petting that dog and it growls at you and then you keep petting it and then it bites you, nobody's gonna think that dog is crazy. They're just gonna be like, oh yeah, obviously that dog was growling when you're petting it. It was warning you. Why'd you keep petting it, okay? That's why it's important to draw your boundaries as quickly as possible and be aware, you may have to even remind people constantly until they remember, oh yeah, sorry, because a lot of their patterns are blind spots. They're not even aware that they're doing it. And that's why it's important to be respectful when you bring up these boundaries so that you're not actually creating resentment in them by being abrasive when you bring these up, okay? Good communication is very important. And communicating boundaries is also a critical aspect of being a success in life, in your romantic life, personal life, as well as your work life. If you're not doing these things, well, we have a program for you. It's called High Status Mentoring, where we teach you about all types of things, communication-wise, social emotional intelligence at a deep level to help you become a stronger leader and just a stronger person with more empathy overall. So if you like my channel, please hit that subscribe button and I'll send more videos your way. And also you can hit that little notification bell if you want to be notified of the newest videos. Again, my name is Jonathan at La Brea Tar Pits in Los Angeles, California. Thank you very much for watching this video and I wish you a good evening.